Hi, I'm Kristen.
Hi, I'm Michelle.
We're readers and writers.
We're sci-fi and fantasy fans, and this is the best of all worlds. Hello everyone and welcome. Today we are going to talk about the Red Rising Trilogy, which is just a really fun time. It is very popular right now. Everyone seems to be talking about it. So it is time that we put in our 2 cents because we've got, I would argue, more than 2 cents to add to the conversation.
Yes, yeah, this is a series that I read when it was still coming out, like back in the day, and I reread more recently, like a couple years ago, so it's definitely always been a favorite of mine, so look forward to chatting about it.
Yes, and kind of what put it on my radar is just there's some YouTubers that I follow that are into book talk or booktube or whatever you want to call it, and they've been talking about it a lot, and I'm like, I'm feeling nostalgic for this series. So we're gonna start first with some non-spoilers, so for those of you who haven't read it, hopefully we can convince you to pick it up, because this is a series that I feel like pretty much anyone can enjoy, and we'll talk about a little bit why. We're going to talk about what we like and a little bit of things that we weren't super a huge fan of. Hey, it's important to know what's good and what's not so good about a story before you go into it, so you can know if that's going to be for you. So we're excited to talk about that, and then we're going to dive into some spoilery stuff, as always.
Yes, and I do want to call out, we are just talking about the original trilogy. I know there's more books. Neither of us have read them yet, so we are just focusing on the first trilogy, and then if you really want us to read the rest of the books, let us know in the comments, and we might make that a priority.
Yes, twist my arm, wrap it around my back, and be like, hey, you really need to read. You don't have to do that. I will actually I want to keep going. I actually, in having this conversation, it's been making me want to reread the whole series from the start and try to push through. I had started Iron Gold, and yeah, it was just a little bit more difficult it's a big tonal change and stylistic change from the main trilogy, but I am very interested to keep going. I hear the series only gets better, so.
And I think, as we'll get into in our comments about what we liked and disliked, from what I've heard, it seems like the newer series probably addresses some of the things that were on my dislike list, which is good to know.
Yes. So as you are listening, if you've read these books, please let us know what you think about our thoughts. And if you haven't read it, are you considering picking it up? Because if you are, you've got 2 people that are very willing to talk about it. So
yes, let us know.
Amazing. All right. So let's start with some of the things that we really like about this series. Like, what, if you were to say, like, the number one thing that makes you really enjoy this trilogy, what would you say that is?
Surprise, surprise, it's themes. I really like the overarching theme of the story of the beginning is a very minor spoiler, but it starts out with a character who is getting roped into a revolution. It's kind of on the back of the book, so you know it's gonna happen. And so, like, he starts out like very angry and like burn it all down, and then we watch as he like becomes part of this society that has oppressed, his people, and actually like making connections with the people within this like upper class that he's hated, and starts to question, like, wait, what is the right way to go about this? What is the right way to free my people? And it really does a very interesting thematic exploration of that idea, and not gonna lie, has definitely inspired some themes in my own books, so that's when you know it's good.
Yeah, the themes are actually probably one of the main things that kept me going so long. I think just in general, the story is kind of what I like about sci-fi in general. Like, pretty much from beginning to end, it's what I like about sci-fi. There's really cool tech. There's a lot of political issues on a grand scale caused by caste systems. I really enjoy caste systems being explored in stories, which is probably why I prefer sci-fi, because that's a pretty common thing done in sci-fi. But the way that he goes about it is very very, very thematically powerful. And like you said, it's just a very, well, you didn't use these exact words, but I'm going to use these words. It's a very optimistic outlook, in my opinion. Even though bad things happen.
Yes. And that's my favorite kind of story, is a story where a bunch of bad things happen, but ultimately it's relatively optimistic. So if
Yes.
you're in for that type of story like I am, highly recommend.
Yes, and that kind of feeds into what is my number one favorite thing about this story, which is that there are actual consequences for your
Yes.
actions. Just the consequences that you think will happen are no, you can't even anticipate some of the consequences that happen, from major character deaths, which we all know is one of my favorite tropes. But then we have fights where the main character actually fails repeatedly. He fails a lot of his fights. There's consequences. There are major consequences to the actions, and I think, again, my favorite part is that major characters die. You cannot trust that the character you like will make it to the end, and I like that.
Yes. And I also want to like kind of circle back to that point about Darrow, the main character, like how he makes mistakes and fails repeatedly. I think he's a really good example of a protagonist that manages to be both very smart, but also make really dumb
Right.
choices that still make sense. It's
Yeah.
like a lot of that really ties to like he's extremely smart, he's extremely adaptable, like think on his feet, like he's really good at that kind of stuff. But sometimes he just lets his emotions get the best of him and makes impulsive decisions that are really not great. And
She says
that's
sometimes.
when, just sometimes, more often than sometimes, the stupid decisions that he makes are like very like rooted in his flaws as a character, and honestly sometimes rooted in the things that make him strong in other situations make him weak in some others. So it's a really well done portrait of like how to write an extremely smart character making mistakes well.
Right, where you don't feel like he's making a mistake for the point of the plot. He's making mistakes based on the information and his current emotional state that do reflect what's actually happening so far in the story. Like, even in the first one, there are multiple mistakes that you make where you want to be like, why'd you do this? But you can't, because you understand why he did it. It's just unfortunate that he did it.
Yes, and that's the best stuff. It's like, oh no, don't do it. Oh, he's gonna do it, and then he did it.
Yeah, and I think none of that is better highlighted than in the later books. I think in the first book he does make some pretty big mistakes, but as the series continues, his mistakes have much more dire consequences. And I like seeing the scale and the scope of those consequences escalating as the story is expanding in scope throughout the trilogy.
Yeah, for sure. It really does grow a lot in terms of just like the character development and even just the writing in general. I think just gets better as the story goes on.
Yeah. And I think it's a good segue to kind of bring up the writing, as we are writers and, hopefully will be published someday. It's nice to remember that your first story doesn't have to have perfect writing and that you have the opportunity to grow and adapt as a writer, because Pierce Brown is proof of that. Each book is better than the last, like, as you continue on. Even Iron Gold, even though I had some issues with pacing, like, the actual writing itself is consistently improving throughout, and his characterization is getting more clear. He expands into multiple points of view. Anyway, I'm getting distracted by the next series, but I do feel like the writing in the earlier series is okay. It's mid in terms of prose and that kind of stuff. So, what are some things that you didn't love about the book series or the trilogy?
So really the main thing that I liked the least is kind of part of the writing style. I think that I'm sure gets improved upon as time goes on, but there's a lot of just plot twist, because Darrow knew this was going to happen, but the reader
Right.
didn't. And it just happens again and again and again. And after a while, it gets really old. And you're like, okay, this plot twist just feels like cheating at this point.
Right.
Like, you can pull it off a few times, but if that's like what happens, like at least half of the plot twists, that's it no longer is fun. And it's more like, really? Again?
Yeah. It is a lot more enjoyable when a twist has been earned and that the information has been dropped to you, but it's recontextualized when the twist hits. I feel like that's much more enjoyable to read than just purely withheld information. Like, I get withheld information to allow for a scene to actually happen. So, like, say they come up with a plan, but you don't actually see what that plan is until it happens. That kind of thing I don't mind, but yeah, just withheld information is a little bit of a pet peeve, not gonna lie.
Yeah. That, and I think also, I especially felt it in the first book, and I think it gets a lot better in the next two. But there were a lot of times where, like, it would just skip from like action to action, and it would like skim over like good like character stuff that I wanted to explore, and it's just like, nope, we're not dealing with that, on to the next battle. And that really frustrated me as a reader who really enjoys the characters and themes. It's like the plot is fun, but sometimes there was almost a little too much plot and not enough like reflecting upon all the things that have happened. But yeah, again, I would say that gets a lot better as the books go on, but I really felt that in the first book, especially, that it's just like, no, don't skip that, I want to know what happened.
Interesting. See, I don't know that that's something I really noticed when I was reading it. I definitely see what you're talking about, like in retrospect, but in the moment, I don't know that I ever necessarily picked up on that, but I do also prefer things to move quickly, and I'm like, I can just infer how they feel about it.
Yeah, I guess that's fair, and this is probably part of me being like, like an epic fantasy
Right.
reader and a reader of books that take a lot of time for the characters to like dwell on the consequences of
Right.
things that happened. And I like that. I like the introspection, I like the psychology, I like the character relationships, and it's like, if you can give me more of that, I want more of it.
Yeah. That actually leads me into something that, kind of going back to things that we do like, I would say character work and character development is a huge strength for this story, and part of what kept me so invested throughout. Like, Darrow as a main character is really compelling, but not only is he compelling, but the side characters are really interesting and have their own little arcs that they're going through.
I definitely agree with that. And yeah, to say that like I want more character stuff doesn't mean that the character stuff that's already there isn't really good, because I totally agree. I think it's honestly impressive how good the characters are, considering how heavily the series is focused on action.
And there is a lot of action. If you like a movie or a story that just keeps going, that never stops, that just keeps slapping you in the face over and over and over again, this series is for you.
You like getting slapped in the face? Well, we've got a recommendation.
Just like people who go to Fight Club, you go there to get stronger, to get more resilient, to feel emotions so that you can handle your own emotions better in the future.
You like that character, kill them off. You like that character, kill them off.
Yeah.
You feeling more resilient yet?
Honestly, he is kind of up there with George R. R. Martin and how far he's willing to go in terms of killing characters that you
there
like.
are a lot of likable characters who died. It's kind of sad, but
Yeah.
it's fine.
It's fine because it creates that complexity and, like, again, going back to the consequences for the actions. And that leads me into probably the one point that I want to call out, because I see this comparison all the time and I just fundamentally disagree with this comparison. And I've for people who know me, I've beaten this dead horse a bajillion times, but I just do not understand or agree that this book series in any way is like Hunger Games. Like, I can see that there are some vague, very general overlaps, but when people are like, oh, if you like Hunger Games, you'll like Red Rising, I don't agree with that opinion. I think they're very different stories.
I think it depends on what you like about the Hunger Games.
Right.
Like, if you like the, intense kill or be killed competition, and if you like the social strata and having a revolution against the government that put the system in place, then yeah, you probably will like Red Rising. But that's really just like the basic premise. I think when you get down to what is actually going on in the story, they're very different in their details.
Yeah, makes me think that those people who've made that comparison don't read a lot of dystopian.
Yeah, that's probably fair, because you read a lot more dystopian than the average person, I would say.
I just remember, like, I was told that comparison before I read it, and I just was reading it, I'm like, I don't see the connection at all. I mean, there is a caste system, so, like there are districts, there are colors, so that's kind of similar. And then there is a game that is played where deaths happen. I think when we were talking about it before, you called it like a variant of Battle Royale, so I guess loosely Battle Royale-ish in common. The person who's the main character is from the lowest strata, but that's also just such a common setup to have a character from the lowest strata fighting a revolution. Like, that's just a common thing, so I wouldn't say that's uniquely Hunger Games. So to me, I guess to your point, really on like a vague premise level, they're kind of similar, but I would say they're very different stories.
Yeah. Similar setup, very different direction taken.
Yeah. To me, I feel like I see more similarities with Ender's Game. I would probably personally use that as a reference over Hunger Games, but maybe a middle ground. Maybe there's a case for a middle ground.
Yeah. I think Red Rising is its own thing, and it has similarities to Hunger Games, and it has similarities to other stuff, but it's popular enough, it can just be its own thing.
Exactly. And boy, is it popular. I just feel like I see howlers everywhere nowadays. And for those of you who haven't read Red Rising, howlers are basically a group of people that are a major part of the revolution. They are like, the main character and his friends are howlers, so that's where that reference comes from. Keeping it vague, so you don't know how or why that comes up in the story. But, well, I don't know about you, but I think I've kind of expelled all I can say without accidentally spoiling anything.
Yes. All right, sounds good. Well, here's your warning. If you care about spoilers, jump away now, and we'll see you later. But if you want to hear us chat about all the spoilers for this series, or at least some very major ones, alert, I'm going to spoil the ending later. But
yes.
Please join us if you don't care. So... Hello, welcome.
Welcome, everyone who's actually read this, or, who doesn't care if they have spoilers. Welcome. This is the more interesting part of the conversation. Let's start with, who are your favorite characters?
Yes, so as we were chatting about this before the podcast, it's impossible to pick just one. So I'm going to share my favorite character, for reals my favorite character, and then I'm going to share an honorable mention who is very close.
Okay.
So my favorite character is surprise, surprise, guess what my favorite trope is? Redemption arcs. So my favorite character is Cassius.
Yes.
Because redemption arcs. I can't help it, okay? He has such a good arc where he starts out being friends with Darrow, and they're building a camaraderie, but little does he know that Darrow actually murdered his brother. It was kind of forced upon him. Darrow didn't really want to do it. He had to get into the training, but the fact is he did murder Cassius's brother, and so that's a reasonable thing to be upset about.
Yeah, and he lied about the fact that he killed him and let him think that, or let Cassius think that it was somebody else who killed his brother. And didn't Cassius kill that guy because of that?
Yeah, so
Yeah, so he made Cassius a murderer under false pretense. Like, I feel like Cassius has every reason to really just hate Darrow after
yeah.
that.
So like it really it's kind of tragic, but it makes sense why they have this falling out, and then they spend like most of the rest of the trilogy being rivals and just like butting up against each other, and like I love the like the friends to enemies, and then in the very end, like he comes around and is like, you know what, I'm over this. Like I'm on your side. Like let's be friends again. And it's so good. It's such a good character arc, and especially on reread, I think it just hit even harder because like when you know how the arc is going to go, you can just see the little moments where it's building toward like, maybe he's gonna turn back around. Maybe he's gonna reconcile with Darrow. Like, is it gonna happen? And then it happens, and it's just like, it's so satisfying. So. Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like Cassius's point of view is made even more clear by his family's response to what happened and how they almost push him into the revenge more than he would have naturally been, which is kind of telling of just how the Golds are in general. They're very like vengeance and violence driven as a whole. They just want to kill everybody.
Yeah, for sure. So like that's definitely not helping him, and like you can kind of see it like as time goes on. It's like, is this really what I want? Do I really want to like pursue this revenge to these extents? It's just I enjoy a good redemption arc. And just outside of the redemption arc too, like Cassius is like a really like interesting character too, just being like that typical like charismatic Gold who's very much like someone who would typically be very likable, except being pitted against Darrow makes him into an enemy. So he's a very good character.
He is, and I know when I was reading it, just the warmth I felt when they finally became friends again after everything. Like, there were little hints leading up, like Cassius was trying to give information and be like, hey, like, maybe this is happening, and with, what's his name, the Jackal or whatever the bad guy's name is. And, those little moments, like, I was like, please, guys, be friends. So when they finally were, I just felt so much relief. I was like, finally, you guys realized that you're not enemies. You are meant to be together. You are soul friend mates. Like, ha! I was very satisfied when that happened. Made my heart feel very warm and gushy on the inside.
Yes. So before I do my honorable mention, who is your favorite character?
Well, my favorite character is kind of along the same lines in that they are one of Darrow's best friends, and that is going to be Severo. What I find really interesting about Severo is he's kind of like a wild animal. He's like your classic black sheep. He doesn't fit in with anyone anywhere. And so, like, he's naturally more of like a loner. He's kind of doing his own thing. I feel like if I'm remembering right, I feel like at the start of Red Rising, he kind of survives just by hiding most of the time. And as the story progresses, he just really becomes Darrow's one true, most loyal friend possible. Like, there is not a moment when he like even comes close to betraying Darrow. He does everything he can in what he thinks is Darrow's best interest, and that's just like a real friend right there. Like, he is just such a good friend. He's so weird too.
he is so weird. He's rude and crude, and it's like, but at the same time, he's like very endearing, despite being like just like weirdly obnoxious in some ways, but just like you just want him as your friend. Like, he's just such a good friend, and I really support a good, just solid friendship, and that is like an excellent example is Darrow and Severo.
Even when they have their little tiff, which To be honest, it's because Severo never should have been in charge of anything. He's not a leader at all. That's just like not his personality. And Darrow went and got himself captured for like a year. Like, what is
Yeah.
Severo supposed to do? He's got to do something. And Severo literally saves Darrow. So, I mean,
Yeah.
again, Severo's just a real one. He's
Mm-hmm.
just a real one, and I love Severo so much.
Yeah, he's great for sure. He'd be another honorable mention for me. Honestly, I would have way too many honorable mentions if I had to
I
go through all
know.
the characters. So I'm glad you called him out because I also really like Severo.
Yeah, I think, yeah, Severo may be one of the most compelling characters in the whole series, especially the way that he kind of like thematically builds or adds to what's happening because he is like half gold, half red. So
Yes.
he is literally Darrow, but instead of like through the force of the technology, he is through genetics,
Mm-hmm.
basically in the same position as Darrow.
Yeah.
So it's like a metaphor or like a simile or like a mirror or a reflection. I don't know, whatever word you want to use to describe that.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think that's easily one of the most interesting things about his character is like I love that reveal. Is like, ooh, like he can relate to Darrow on a level that nobody else in that society can because he too knows like the weird like balance of being both red and gold like
Right.
at the same time.
Exactly. And he's the first one that Darrow even tells the truth to, isn't he?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. So, yeah,
Yeah.
that is a
So,
good moment.
so many funny moments with Severo.
Yes.
It's great. But yeah, so who is your honorable mention?
For honorable mention, I just had to give a shout out to Mustang because I think she's a like one of my favorite examples of someone who is like a love interest to the male main character while still being like completely her own person with her own like strengths and her own plots going on in the background. Like she is very much like an independent, competent, like great character while also being the love interest. And I think she's just really well done in that way. And I love that she can be like a strong character without that necessarily being like I'm gonna punch someone in the face kind of strength, and more like she's just really smart and she's really good at the political games, and like that's where her strengths lie, and she brings a lot to the table with those skills she has. And I appreciate that. She's just a cool character, and she's like also very easy to root for as well. Like she's very likable
yeah.
too, on top of being competent and smart.
Despite having so many reasons to want to distrust her, like with who her dad and who her brother are, like you want to distrust her, but like no matter what she does, I'm just like, no, I believe that she wants to do the right thing.
Yeah.
Like even though they like repeatedly try to get you to doubt her, especially the character I'm about to mention.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think that's honestly one of the reasons I like her so much is because like
Right.
there she has so many reasons to like choose to go against her moral compass, but she doesn't. She always
Right.
ends up making the right choice, which is like good for her. Respect.
Exactly. Exactly. It's nice to have a little moral clarity in a story that's full of so much moral ambiguity, which is maybe one of the main reasons why I like this story is that there is so much moral ambiguity. But I just wanted to add in terms of Mustang what really made her stand out to me. Like she's really good in Golden Sun and Morningstar, but what really stood out to me is how she solved that major ending of Red Rising completely non-violently. Like she took people as slaves and that ultimately saved them from being murdered. Like she saved a bunch of people from being murdered that should have, according to the rules of the game, been killed. And I thought that was really clever and kind of, yeah, again, put her on my radar as like, oh, this girl is actually good.
Yeah.
Compared to all these horrible golds. What is this? She's maniacal, she's conniving, but for a good goal? Question mark.
Nice.
Yes, exactly. But speaking about maniacal with a Well, I would say that she's probably like neutral. Like she's neither good nor bad, and that is Victra. She's my honorable mention. Ironically, she is the other love interest to Darrow. Though I never really felt like they had anything. I just felt like the
Yeah.
relationship with Mustang was really obvious, but she technically is a love interest, and they have like a little thing for a little while. But I like that Victra is more morally ambiguous personally. Like I like that you don't really know which side she's gonna be on. Ultimately, she ends up on our end, which is nice. But there's definitely a lot of moments where you question whose side she's gonna be on, and she has plenty of reason to be upset with Darrow too. But she ultimately is loyal to him, not the Golds or any one particular faction. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, she's also a very good character for sure. She doesn't have like as much narrative importance as some of the other characters
Right.
we talked about, but like for the role she plays in the story, like she plays a very like good part.
And she's one of the few people that can really understand the consequences of the torture that they went through, because she went through a very similar torture to what Darrow went through, but it's kind of like the mirror image of it, whereas Darrow had like absolute deprivation of anything. She just had overwhelming like chaos constantly. Like that would be enough to drive anyone mad. It's
Yeah.
amazing that she came out so sane on the other end of 9 months being like tortured in that way. Oh my god, can you imagine?
Yikes. Yeah. No, that is definitely for sure like that they share that and can understand each other in that way is a pretty cool character thing.
So I think that lets us move pretty smoothly into world building and what is our favorite element within the world building.
Yes. I'll let you get started off first. What is your favorite element?
Well, I just love world building that has factions. I know there's like some malaise towards it or just like burnout because of how many like YA dystopians in particular used this like world building. But I love factions as a metaphor, and it really allows you to kind of like exaggerate what the social class divides are and emphasize like what are the struggles that these different groups of people go through and why some are more complacent with the system than others. So like for example, Reds are the lowest of the low. That's who Darrow is. They don't even like see the rest of the world. They don't even know the rest of the world exists because they are just into the hard labor. They are like your manufacturers, your blue collar people. They are intentionally kept separated from the rest of the world. Then you have blues who are more like, the learners, the scientists, etc., who are kind of complacent with the world, but like, I mean, even right away, you meet a blue who like literally changes Darrow into a gold. Then you have like the pinks who are, I mean, maybe a little on the nose. They're the escorts to make this YouTube friendly. And yeah, I really like the way that we can explore the different struggles that these groups of people have and why the system exists and how that system keeps them where they're at. And there's a lot of nepotism in the Golds, which I think mirrors real life in a very direct way. It just takes like what's existing already in real life, exaggerates it, gives it a name, a label, and helps you explore it in a way that's a little easier to digest than the nuances of day-to-day life.
Yeah. No, for sure. Like I think that although yeah, it has been a little bit overused, I think it's used well in this series, which is why it works and it's well like each like separate faction within the world really gets explored to a more depth than a lot of factions do in other similar
Exactly.
like dystopian setups. So
Exactly. Like if I were to compare this to Divergent, for example, Divergent doesn't even hold a candle to the world building of this book
yeah.
or this series. So, and what about you? What is your favorite element?
I mean, Probably not that surprising as someone who enjoys history and historical fiction and all that, but I just love that it's Roman inspired. Like, that's so cool to me. Like, easily my favorite part of the world building is the names being Roman and like kind of the culture being this future bastardization of what Rome stood for, and just all of this really interesting like Roman bent being weaved into everything that's going on here. Like, it's just, as a history nerd, I'm like, this is just so fun. Like, yes, I want
Yeah.
space Romans. Give me space Romans.
Yeah. Exactly. I think it's fun too. I never really was like that huge into history, so I only like vaguely realized that that's what it is. Like, I mean, I was aware that there were a lot of Roman references, like characters' names like Ares and stuff. Like, it's kind of hard to miss that kind of thing. And I did enjoy that. I just wouldn't say that I'm educated enough in Roman history to know the full depth of what he's done in that story.
Yeah. I think it's not just like the aesthetics and culture being Roman, but even like the story's a little Roman. Like, the ending of book 2 is like very Julius Caesar coded. But yeah, I guess that brings us through world building. So on to our final category, which is our favorite scene.
Yes. Well, I think in this particular case we should go in order because our scenes are both from the same book.
Yes. All right, I'll let you start it out then.
So, anyone who's read the series knows that each book just raises the stakes even more. There's more and more emotional scenes. So picking one was difficult. But the one scene that like really stood out to me and had a lasting impression on me was when Ragnar died in Morning Star in this like, you know, white landscape. They're in this really dangerous setting. Everything's going wrong. And Ragnar dies. Really, it's like the visuals of that scene, the emotional impact of that, and just the way that he had been such a huge ally all up until here. And it really made me feel very upset when he died. And I feel like that's good execution on a major character death in a story, is when you feel as much as I felt.
Yeah, for sure. That moment got to me too. I don't think I'm quite as much of a fan of character death as you are, so I don't know if I would pick that as my favorite scene, but I would definitely pick it as a very well written scene. That for sure was like, it was a very like, it was appropriately somber for what it was. Like, it makes you feel, and it's like a satisfying but very tragic end, and that's what really makes it work.
Well, your scene only comes half a book later. That's like the midpoint when that happens.
Yeah,
much,
so I was like, I'm gonna pick the most spoilery scene possible for the entire story because it's literally just like the ending finale. But listen, there's something about it, even though it does the thing that annoys me with like the Darrow knows something and we don't. I don't care because it has a redemption arc in it, okay?
Yes.
I'm biased.
Cassius.
It's like, that moment is so good when it's like, oh no, like, we thought he was turning around and then he betrayed them, but no, it turns out he never betrayed them. It was a double cross. Yeah. It was like, it was so good. That moment gets me every time. Even I remember on my first read, I was like, that was so cool. And on my reread, I was still like, that was so cool. It hits. As a lover of redemption arcs, it hits so good.
Yeah, I remember being really shocked when it was revealed that Cassius was on their side. I mean, I had hoped for that, but there was no clear resolution before then as to whether or not he was on Darrow's side. So to see that scene and to see him like turn around and actually help, I was like, what? Cassius, yes.
Yes, it's like, because it got me hoping. I'm like, is he going to be redeemed? Is he going to be redeemed? No, don't do it, no. Oh, he didn't do it.
Yes. Yeah,
a good
no,
time.
that was a very impactful scene. Actually, Morning Star is just full of a bunch of really good moments.
Yes.
The whole series is full of really good moments.
Yeah, I feel like a hot take, but Morning Star is actually my favorite. I know Golden Sun tends to be most people's favorite from that trilogy, but no, I love Morning Star. Especially, it just ends in such a satisfying way. Especially like hitting on, as we mentioned earlier, just that like the whole thing's been very dark, but it ends like so positively, and I love that about it.
Yeah. And I have a less hot take. My favorite one is definitely Golden Sun, just because I like the political stuff that happens. I always like learning lore about why everything is the way it is. And I'm a big middle book person. I just really liked that one. In terms of rating, I gave Golden Sun a 9.1. But for context, I gave Morning Star an 8.5, so that's not that far off for scoring. They're pretty close. They're pretty both up there, so.
Yeah. I think on my rating scale, I can't remember what I gave Golden Sun. It's definitely like my second favorite. It's above Red Rising for me. But Morning Star was the only one of the trilogy that got a 5-star for me because it just thematically it landed. And that's what gets a 5 stars when it's like this impacted me. This literally has influenced how I've written some of my novels and the themes I put into them. So that's a 5-star book for me.
Be honest, how much of that 5 stars because of the redemption?
I think for sure the redemption influences it because the ending I love the ending partially because of the redemption, but I also
Right.
just love that the ultimate conclusion is hey, burning everything down is not the right
Yeah.
answer. Maybe we should find a better way where, we don't just start a new version of class warfare. Like that's not productive. Like let's do better.
Exactly.
And I love that theme, and I think that's really what makes it a 5-star. Not the redemption arc helps, but it's the theme of like let's do better that makes it 5 stars.
No, that's absolutely fair, and I think for me it's just more like I enjoyed that for sure. I liked it. I thought it was a solid ending. I read it really fast. I just like learning the lore and the backstory and the politics, like just a little more.
That's fair. That's
They
fair.
all serve the same theme and the same ending, so technically.
Yeah, it's true. They all build toward the ending, and you couldn't have the third book without the second one or the first one. So
Exactly.
as a total, all 3 books, great series.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I would say these are really good books for people who want to get into sci-fi or fantasy. They want easier reads. Like the prose is pretty easy to get through. It's nothing crazy. And yeah, the protagonist is just very compelling. The story is just your classic revolution from the point of view of somebody from the lower caste system. And it's fun. It's fun all the way through, especially if you like something a little bit on the darker side.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It's got a little bit of darkness, it's got action, it's got good characters. It's got like a lot of the good things that draw different kinds of people in and can kind of like find a middle ground. So I think it's very easily recommendable to a lot of different readers.
Absolutely. So, have you read it? If so, tell us what you agree with or disagree with or feel like we left out in this discussion. Should we keep reading? Should we bump that up the old TBR? As you all know, our TBRs have like 500 books on them.
It's
so,
fine.
You know.
I literally have a pile of books. It's fine.
This is fine. We're fine. But yeah, let us know your thoughts down below. But otherwise, make sure to like, subscribe, do the thing, share it, talk about it, etc. And we will see you next time. Bye.